quiet right now.
I don't know.
That meeting, I told you that last week.
Just so everyone's aware, Chambers is unmuted and we are live on YouTube.
It's unmuted, everybody, just so everybody knows. Unmuted,
Muted?
unmuted.
I mean, we're ready to.
Thanks, Amanda.
Which meeting's first?
Heidi explains.
I know. Sorry.
No, I didn't.
No, I had a meeting and then we had mandatory training. You get out of there.
I don't know.
We'll give it a while.
Yes.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, she's on her way.
Oh, she, thank you.
Oh, I do have government ops. I'm sorry, Bob.
Good young man.
Any news?
She's
She's excused,
Hey,
lady.
hon,
I saw the email.
did you see my email from Deanna?
All right, Sue's available for.
I emailed Deanna.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see her answer?
No.
It's on there. That's not the answer. Sent to her,
Oh, okay,
but it's on your email.
okay.
All right, just so you know.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess. I got snorting for me. Is that what you think I said, snorting?
I would have. No, I know. I was too.
Okay.
I had to wait on you. If I was.
It's gonna happen.
That's what's different. I was like, it's different.
There's something.
Yes, but
3 days ago.
Yeah, I had the shoulder
It was
surgery.
casual.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Appears we have a quorum. And Lydia is excused and Heidi is en route. Right? So let's do the minutes to approve, please.
What?
We have a motion and can I have a second, please?
second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
I
I'm assuming no one's opposed. So, all right. I don't see John. Is iPhone with the Board of Elections? Does anyone, do you know, Dave, who I?
They didn't get a hold of me, so
John Keith. Speaking to
I'm
the.
on there. Yeah, usually one of them's there.
Yeah, so, well, you guys have the reports and if there's any questions, obviously you can reach out to them or I'd be happy to do that. But I'm gonna go out on a limb, say most of us have pretty regular contact with the Board of Elections, especially this year. Anyways, Sheila Smith, no updates. Hi, Mr. Palermo. Good evening. Sue Dwyer, she just texted me. She has no updates. She is available for questions regarding the resolution that was added on 3/7. Would you guys like to, you want to just go for it now? This is our only resolution. This is authorization to fill one full-time records retention specialist due to retirement. So this was a late add-on, I do believe, Fred, this was because of control number. Am I correct on that?
Control number and the funds are in the budget for 23.
Thank you, sir. So a motion, do I have a second? Second, any discussion? Let's see, Hans, is your hand up first? No, okay, Mark.
Is this the one that's gonna be for the, doing the
Records? Yeah, the records.
So.
is this the same position?
No, so it would, if I'm, again, we could call Sue, but it's my understanding that this is a new title, civil service here. I think it's a new title. Can you help?
Chris?
No?
Chris.
Is it a different title? Yeah, okay, Fred.
It's
thanks.
a current position. It's, there's a vacancy due to retirement. This is a resolution to fill a vacancy.
Right, but didn't we change, is it the record retention specialist still is that the old title?
That's the old title.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
So,
more now than I was.
all right, it's an existing position that just needs to be filled due to retirement, and I'll stop talking. That's just why I shouldn't go over 30 words. Rayons. Yes.
If you can answer this, is it currently vacant or is it Are we anticipating a vacancy?
According to the resolution, the retirement effective December 31st.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Won't be effective.
2022 is the retirement.
It says, oh, okay, so but the field is valid through December 31, 2023. Okay.
That's
so
correct,
The
yeah.
extension of it. Okay, that's what I was looking at, because I didn't know if she was anticipating it. She was getting ready. You know what I mean?
Get clarity before the end of the month.
and so does that mean no further questions? All right. Hearing no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. And we'll provide more clarity perhaps in the Ways and Means Committee when Sue Dwyer's here to.
Could happen, you never know.
All right. So let's see, Tom, there you are. Yes, sir.
So good evening. You have my report. We're very, very busy in the IT department, working on several different projects that I've outlined below. So if you have any specific questions, anything, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Just giving you guys some time to process. No questions.
Just a comment that the Cayuga Gold is really great and seems like it's growing and you're adding new initiatives. You guys had some positive feedback.
We have, yeah, we've got a ton of positive feedback with Shireen and several others on our committee. Driving it forward. One of the latest things we're implementing is the digital displays. So we're pushing some new content out across the county. So yeah, we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
All right, any further questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Just regarding that digital signage, for the people that aren't here during the day, at roles during the day, but it's really, really great. You guys did a great job on that. It tells, in the future, I'm sure it's going to tell a lot more, but you know, it gives you the Cayuga Gold winners. It gives you a lot more information, but it's a great project. Thank you.
Thank you. And we created a mechanism to collect, any information from department heads and employees. Obviously there's a process to post all that, but yeah, that's how we're going to feed our content going forward. That'll be in chambers, the caucus rooms. We have a display down in the IT department, and we're going to end up putting one down in the digital signage.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Mr. Swab with veterans. He is on. Or
Kevin?
there he is.
I'm here. I just had to get it, hit the right buttons. Report as submitted, steady flow of claims coming in for veterans. And with the Dwyer funds, we've been able to hire 2 part-time VSOs who can be more hands-on out in the community. And we've actually been visiting some veterans in their homes who are having issues with just different things. It just kind of runs the gamut. But that has definitely been a benefit to us in our outreach and expanding. I'm working on plans to do things this summer. We're in the process of reviewing a potential Cold War veteran property tax exemption. We're gonna have a meeting on that tomorrow, so you should be possibly seeing something on that in the future as well. So any questions?
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Kevin.
No doubt.
Sure. Let me just.
I just I think I'm about to set a record and I don't want to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I so move.
Second?
Wow.
Is there a second?
I was gonna ask you a question. No.
Yeah, all right, motion and a second. Yes, sir.
Since this is an incredibly short meeting,
Oh my God.
I just came out of the office talking to Attorney Rich Graham, and as we were talking, it occurred to me that between Mr. Graham and Mr. Westfall, there is over 100 years of experience right there alone. And we've got Brittany, who is phenomenally personable She's got the right disposition for her job. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I want to thank all of you.
Happy to, Chris. We're lucky to have you
But
too.
it's the team. I mean, I've got so much experience in the office. It's just,
I just want you to know the village spent a lot of time molding.
Yeah.
Our county attorney.
I defer to Mr. Basile, as far as my training goes. Good or bad. Thank you all.
All right, thanks, Chris. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Bobby's got a problem.
Yeah, I'm not ready to start yet, so I guess,
Presentation.
If you want me to, if you want me
He ain't gonna be
to.
here though for another half hour.
I could skip around. So let's do, we'll start at quarter of.
I have to do it.
Oh, thank God.
Pick me.
I think.
Pick me,
I'm a big, whatever she has in her budget right now.
Somebody.
It is.
Okay. Twice.
Is there an office here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
His wife is eligible.
3 leads on him.
You don't call, you don't write.
No, here, I'm at.
They get a divorce?
No, he told her it's not his fault.
Oh,
There's almost.
It's not.
we're not 22 anymore, are we?
Right? It's not a game at our age.
Well, I'm glad you made it through it.
Well, it's
Take a while.
on the, if she's on the.
Okay, Chambers is unmuted, just so everyone's aware.
Thank you. My BFF.
Hey,
So that's,
Because I'm just,
gotta sleep.
yeah.
It's the best thing in the world. I'm glad.
hey, Mr. Shea. We're live and it's not memorized.
We're up.
That's an old
All
one.
right.
Memorize.
We have a presentation tonight, so we'll skip around a bit, if you'll indulge me. And will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. I'll entertain a motion for minutes approved February 8th.
I'll move it.
Second, Mark.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And we'll skip down to Steve Lynch, Planning and Economic Development. Your report.
Good evening, everybody. You all have my report. It's fairly detailed. I have 3 resolutions tonight. I do have one additional update for you in addition to my report. I wanted to just highlight and thank, recognize Associate Planner Michelle Wunderlich. She's the most senior planner we have on staff, and she's been fairly instrumental in maintaining the department's focus on water resource planning, natural resource planning, in addition to other things. She's the lone staff to the Water Quality Management Agency, the WQMA. They meet monthly. Dan comes to those meetings, Doug comes to those meetings, plenty of other people come to those meetings. Earlier today, Michelle emailed the annual work plan to everybody. So I hope you all got that and take a look at it. She does all of the outreach and communication that comes through the WQMA. She all the minutes, she does all the agendas and so on. In addition, she administers all of our FLOPA funds. That's the Finger Lakes, Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance funding, which means keeping track of the projects, the grants, and stay happy with what we're doing, getting the budgets approved. She's also the oversight supervisor for our annual household hazardous waste programs, the annual electronics programs that we do with Cornell, the tire program that we don't really do much with, but mostly is Soil and Water Conservation District, and the HHW, which we all work on together. And lastly, in addition to this, she devotes about 20% of her time to the health department, helping the health department with their emergency preparedness planning, point of distribution, those types of things. I'm bringing this up because I looked at my last like 6 or 7 committee reports, and I didn't see Michelle's name in it. And I don't know if she's just really good at keeping under the radar or if it's just a gross oversight on my part, but I wanted to correct that and really recognize her this evening. If you don't have any questions on my report, Mr. Chair, I can go over my resolutions if that will move things along.
Anybody have any questions? Let's go over the resolution, Steve.
Okay, EL3 is authorizing the allocation of $10,417 for a 2019 consolidated funding application that was put in by the County of Orleans. It's been awarded. It's been kind of sitting on the shelf. This is the subject that I presented about last February, or this past February at the PEDC. Did that little presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I hope I can have your support on it.
Any questions on PL? Entertain a motion for PL 3?
Oh, I'm not.
I've never done that one.
Oh, second Basile.
Second Basile. Move to discussion. Any questions for PL 3? Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? PL 3 is carried.
PL 4 and PL 5 are both contractual resolutions authorizing already allocated and budgeted funds for various contracts for water quality monitoring, one in Cayuga Lake, PL 5, and one in Owasco Lake, PL 4. I will make a note that we have sole source documentation in the form of letters and explanation that are on file for both of these projects.
Second.
Discussion, any questions? Art?
I got a couple of questions mostly related to PL 5. Says that we have an agreement with the Finger Lakes Institute for the implementation of the Wasco Watershed Monitoring Program. How did we come upon the Finger Lakes Institute for doing this monitoring? Is there a bid process for this? Is there other places that does this type of monitoring?
We have documentation of sole source from Finger Lakes Institute, and I would just share with you that this monitoring has been going on for probably 12 to 13 years at this point. So the way I would look at it, it is an ongoing body of research that's done by the Institute, who keep all the records, collate all the records, and draw conclusions out of the science that is applied to the monitoring. So it would be very challenging to jump ship and have somebody else come in and start all over again.
I guess my question would be, I mean, obviously we're talking around $21,690. I mean, we just automatically pay this price for this company. They just come up with a price and that's it, and we pay it, no questions asked.
It's generally a scope of work that comes every year that is pretty much the same. We haven't changed the price in any number of years. It's really, we have a breakdown of what the costs are to do this particular work, between putting the buoy in the lake, gathering the materials from the buoy, going out and doing the monitoring, and so on and so forth. I'm very happy to share the sole source documentation with you.
I guess, okay, so, I mean, they do the work and the stuff. I mean, I may have missed it. I'm not perfect around here, but do they present any of this information that they collect to the legislator in any type of written report?
Yep, there's an annual, absolutely. There's an annual report every year. They report to the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council. They do a presentation, and I believe they are presenting last year's findings, March 11th, which is Saturday, at the symposium at Auburn Public Theater on Owasco Lake water quality. So yes, it's something they do every year, and they present at a symposium. They present a report, which I have available if you'd like to see it. And they present that publicly at Owasco Watershed Management Council meetings.
This is the only source of information, so we take whatever this Finger Lakes Institute, that we take whatever they say is gospel, and that's the way we govern our lake.
Well, again, this is an ongoing research project. I would ask you to consider the benefit of staying with a research team that is qualified lab doing work year in and year out, rather than trying to go out each time and get a different team to do it. I would add to that, other than maybe Upstate Freshwater Institute out of ESF, there's really not a lot of other entities that you can probably come up to do this.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I just wanted to speak real quickly about the Finger Lakes Institute. I've worked with them personally. They come in and provide education and trainings to schools and equipment and stuff at no cost. So they are an educationally based organization also. So I've actually gone out on their boats and seen how they collect this data, and it's really pretty amazing the work that they do. So I've personally seen them in action.
Chair, with resolution PL5, there would need to be an amendment for the date for 0.1. It's supposed to go to 31st, 2024, not 2023.
Okay.
We just need an amendment.
Okay, I think, and what I'm hearing, I think it would be interesting with what we're paying these folks at the Institute, if maybe they would stop by and, because the buoy tests are interesting to me anyway, and how they do it. Maybe that is something we can do in future. Dinner cruise. Dinner cruise. So let's, we need to approve PL4.
Amendment first, I think.
Or,
5 is when it needs to be amended.
yeah,
Well,
okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to amend PL5
I'll move it.
for the March.
I'll second that. Change the date from the 23rd to the
Okay,
24th.
all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
Now as amended.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve PL5 as amended.
I'll move it.
Have a second?
Second, Basile.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. All right, anything else, Steve?
We didn't do 4.
That's all
I
right.
don't know that we did 4.
All right. Well, let's go back to 4 and entertain a motion to approve PL4.
I'll move it.
Second,
Second, Basile.
discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? PL4 is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Our next report is employee training.
Everybody. I also have 2 resolutions that we'll go over at the end of my report. I just have a couple of things to run through. One of the first things on my report talks about how myself and my staff went through it was called disruptive customer policy training, which is offered through the New York State Department of Labor. This is causing a little bit of concern in our office because they have changed the regulations in the Department of Labor where previous to this policy, if somebody on unemployment was deemed either ineligible or benefits are suspended or disruptive in terms of in our center and being refused service where they are not allowed to come back for a period of time. That used to take place through Albany through a letter directly to the customer where they would be suspended outside of our center. So now they're saying that we actually have the ability and are required to suspend and we can lift suspensions, we can suspend, we can ban people from our center based on disruptive behavior. So there was an incident about a week ago in our center where that happened and the person was asked to leave. So now we physically will be required to hand these people a letter that says right on the spot while they're being disruptive, here you can't come back. So I don't support the policy. I think it's adding to increase some of our safety concerns. We don't have security. Often there's not security on campus. So we are working with them. I'm working with the Department of Labor on how we're going to continue with that policy. I hear birds.
I thought it was a cricket.
So that's something that I'm working on. I may be looking for support. I don't support the policy. I'm not sure what the end result will be, but I don't feel that it is county's responsibility to go up and ask someone who has been banned based on a Department of Labor regulation to leave the center. I think that should come from the Department of Labor staff because that is their program and their policy. Whereas if I ban somebody, let's say one of our mandated programs such as DSS, it would not be the Department of Labor's responsibility to go up and say, here, you're being disruptive, you need to leave. That would be my responsibility. So I see that as their responsibility, or we're going to have some security issues. So that's something that we're.
Sure.
Kelly, have you run that by the county attorneys?
No, I have not.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Definitely,
I
yeah.
appreciate it. Yes.
Thank you.
Is there not, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
is there not people in that office that work for the Department of Labor?
There are, yes.
Are these? No, I'm not going further.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So as you can see, my frustration lies, I have a lot of concern.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
Is it still one at a time or by appointment or?
Yeah, so what's interesting is I did speak with the Department of Labor manager, and apparently it sounds like we are one of the few offices that are still doing that. I think it's up to that manager's discretion. So in other counties, I did ask, because they're, with the Department of Labor not serving an abundance of people, it hurts my program, because that's how I can capture dislocated workers, and that's how we can put people in our program. We don't have the foot traffic. We had 240 people come through. Previous, we looked at 1,000 people coming through in a month. It's hurting our business, so to speak. And other counties are serving people like pre-COVID as we are. Our office, for whatever reason with the state, they're not doing that. And I don't have the answer to that. But they are not. I don't know why. So essentially, I would be looking for support and I will speak with the county attorney's office. I don't feel it's my responsibility to act as security and ask people to leave when that's just throwing fuel on the flame, because now you're disruptive and I'm saying, here's a letter, you cannot come back until this day. So we're working on that. I'll be in touch, Brittany, and we'll move forward with that. We had a mini job fair. It was very successful. We had MCOM, New Core Steel. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I gotta go back to this.
Yes.
Without saying the name, you know who the supervisor is there and stuff. So we have the right people
Correct.
that we can go up to the state level and say, why is this?
Correct.
We don't have to go to them. Or have you already tried talking to them first? That person?
Yes.
Okay, and that went on deaf ears. is
Yeah,
what
we're
I'm
working.
gathering.
We're working on that.
So if you come to us by the full ledge meeting and there's no movement on that, I think we gotta speak up to something. We need to know, that group is killing themselves out there. No, sorry, that might have been the wrong word, but
I hope not.
whatever, working hard to do what they do. Now we're hearing people, COVID's over. We're, other departments are in full swing, and this one here is still running on a shoot with
Yeah.
support from our state in the same building. So
Right.
That's
what's-
exactly why we got to.
Right. And what's
Yeah.
concerning, I think, too, is that the manager for this region is familiar with Onondaga and Oswego County, manages those locations as well. And there is security in the centers. They also have DSS folks coming in, and I believe DSS pays for the security to be there as security is in this building. We don't have that in our building, but they do in the other career centers. So it probably feels a little bit different for someone to go up and say, you can't come here, you need to leave, because there's an armed officer standing there. We don't have that luxury. We had an act of violence almost last May when somebody spit in my face, and we don't have security on campus. They are not there every day. They're not. So if we it's like calling the police if something's happening at your house, and we have people coming in that are mandated on unemployment. If they're suspended, their livelihood is cut off, they're desperate, they're on hard times, and there is a lot of unstable people in the world right now. So, I do anticipate this to be a little bit of a struggle, and I will reach out, if I can't settle it myself and with the help of the county
if
attorney.
that person manages 3 counties, they ought to know how each county operates. Do their job. So we need to help this. We need to help her out. So let's see here by the full ledge meeting, or we have to do something. Believe me, I'm not afraid to make a phone call.
Before you go on, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Legislator Peterson.
Thank you.
He may have.
I've been waiting patiently. so patiently that I believe you basically answered my question with regard to you're at a shared location on the Cayuga Community Campus, right?
Right.
And so I was interested as to why there's not a memorandum of understanding with campus safety. Why it seems to me that that is definitely a public safety function, and that should be picked up by campus safety, but you're saying there's not.
Not all the time. So I did, I have talked with facilities and with campus safety. And there's a shortage of safety, officers at the college. There are. So our protocol in the Career Center is that we call 911 first. And so that's what we do, because we can't be sure that there will be a campus security. So if we call security, we may not get them. So what happened with the last situation where the police had to be called is we had to just go through 911 because there was not security. And I can't risk my staff. So that is what we do first is 911.
And I guess I would further comment that it seems as though, you could capitalize on the resource that should be present a little more. But that's a college issue. I understand.
Yeah, I think there's a shortage. I think they're doing the best that they can do, and I can address that again with facilities, with CCC, and let them know, especially let them know in the new policy that we have people that are coming in and they're disgruntled and now they're banned, and then they're just more disgruntled because they come in and then you're telling them they have to leave, and they're there because they need help even though they're agitated. So that's a discussion that I can also have with CCC and see, what's.
It's a pretty open facility. You can walk up to any desk.
So we'll hear back from you, if not next month.
Yeah, yes, my plan after this meeting, before the next meeting, is I'll have a conversation with facilities at CCC and see what we can come up with along with the Department of Labor and the county attorney, and we'll go from there, and I'll report back next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to hear by the legislature.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Some kind of update. Next month's a whole month.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can do that.
Just a little update.
28th.
Yes,
Yeah, just an update
absolutely.
on how you make it out. So what we gotta do.
Sure.
Thank you.
Another quick update is I've been working with the leadership team of Loretto. They reached out to me to troubleshoot with their nurse aid crisis. They can't get staff. They can't keep staff. They traditionally have gone through Cayuga Onondaga BOCES through their CNA program and their health train program. And they have not had a great retention rate. So we're working with them on supporting their endeavor. They want to do an in-house training for CNAs like they do with the LPNs. And hopefully they'll see a greater success with that. So working closely with them right now. TANF summer program, that money is money that comes through the state for us to execute a summer program. Talking about it in March seems early, but our funds are spent through from May until September. So that being said, our applications will go out this month and we'll hear from them probably in May with our full allocation. FFS, triple FS money that Lynn allocates to our department to enroll additional youth that fall under TANF income guidelines. We do receive $17,000 from that pool of money to serve youth. We use 15 of the 17,000 towards youth and 17 to cover some additional expenses. We have enrolled 4 in that program, which we just started the new round of funds in January. And so all that money is spoken for. And we have 4 youth in that program, so that's great. Since my report, we did enroll another youth and we did enroll another dislocated worker in training, along with signed another on-the-job training contract. So that's our second on-the-job training since January, which is phenomenal because we'll go years sometimes without getting an employer on board. Very pleased with that progress and kudos to my staff for making that happen. I do want to thank Gary Duckett for he's been very supportive of our youth program. He have consistently placed youth in the buildings and grounds department, and he has hired 3 of them as full-time civil service employees for Cayuga County, helping with their staffing shortage. And also really empowering our folks because now they have unsubsidized employment on their own that they would not have been able to do if it weren't for our program and for the support of Gary and Buildings and Grounds. So I'm thanking him publicly here tonight. The last thing that I have here to really highlight is the Micron subcommittee that is continuing to meet monthly. We had somebody from Micron, her name was Sarah Newton Klitz, and she is part of the leadership team of Micron. She did a presentation at our last subcommittee meeting, which was very informative. And just today, I believe it was today, we received an invite for, they're calling it Future Ready Workforce Innovation Consortium. That is headed up by Syracuse University, specifically for Micron and bringing partners together. We will be meeting, I believe, on March 15th to hear more about Micron's goals for Central New York. That will help us focus a little bit on what we want to accomplish in our subcommittee. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about what the goals are for this area. So that's exciting. And we just got the invite today. I think that sums everything up. I do have two resolutions for tonight. If I can proceed with those, my first one is PL1, which is essentially authorizing employment and training to enter into a lease agreement with Cayuga Community College. Looking to extend it for 1 year because then after that, we will be moving to the Workforce Development Center and we'll have to execute a new lease agreement at that time.
Let's take a motion to approve PL1.
I'll move it.
Second.
Second, Mark.
Second, Mark. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PL1 is carried.
Okay, thank you. And PL2 is for Employment and Training Department to enter into a sublease agreement with the New York State Education Department, which is Access VR, formerly known as VESID. We do sublet to our Department of Labor and Access VR as part of our one-stop agreement.
Move it. Second.
Discussion, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PL2 is carried.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Thanks, Cal.
Mike, you're next.
Evening, everyone. So I'll keep this brief. Going over the metric snapshot that was shared with this committee over the last week. Our existing businesses assisted through January was roughly 20, with entrepreneurs assisted at 28. Per legislator Lydia Patty Ruffini's request, also put together a breakdown of the assistance of locations. We have had some strong interest within the northern part of the county as of late. That being said, we are teeing up more interest from the southern end of the county going into this next month here. Our additional metrics, as always, are in the back of your packets there. Maureen Reeser and I met with a very large developer interested in IDA benefits. And I additionally met with some reps from the city of Auburn and public affairs rep for Alstom, the new owner of the Alstom facility there. One of the great outcomes of that meeting is Alstom's commitment to seeing that facility go back to productive use. So that's an very encouraging fact, excuse me, from the prior owner who was difficult to work with, as I understand it. So with Alstom's support, we're able to market this property. We know it's, a great landmark in the city at over 15 acres. It has a lot going for it. We actually responded to an inquiry from the state today as a potential site for a blind applicant. So being able to work with Alstom and to see this facility go back into productive use, very exciting. And we'll keep this committee here updated on that. And other IDA news, two things in particular. As many of you know, we have the large sewer project going on over in Relius Industrial Park there, and we were awarded this $1 million+ grant last year through the EDA. We had asked this committee in the larger ledge over the last month for an easement to help get this through the EDA legal process. We were finally granted permission to go out to bid on that project this last week, which is a huge milestone for us to get moving on that. Part of putting this sewer line in, it permits Cayuga Milk Ingredients and Eagle Drive Holdings to begin on their expansion project later this year. And that's really tied into this new sewer line being put through. Again, I will keep this committee updated. Administratively, we're working through year-end financial and annual reporting required by the state by the end of March. So that's a heavy hand in the back office that's going on there. In other news, we're continuing the feasibility analysis of and support for the Cayuga County Accelerator/Incubator project here. So we're having some really encouraging discussions with our key partners here in Cayuga County. Most recently went up to the Tech Garden out of Syracuse to have a better understanding of how they've run that incubator up there. It's one of the better known ones within the region here. They've had excellent success. So we're really using that as a model for what can we use for Cayuga County, knowing we have our own strengths, we have our own characteristics. We want to take what they do well, but this is Cayuga County. So let's make sure it's fitting the profile and characteristics of what we do well here. Again, I'll be keeping this committee updated on the development of that there. As Kelly mentioned, one of the great meetings we've had over this last month from our Micron subcommittee related to workforce was having the ability to sit down with the Micron rep directly. A lot of great information came out of that meeting, I felt. Some of the key things I picked up on relative to there was their interest in seeing the entire region benefit from their investment here. So we're looking at this in two different ways. From a supply chain perspective, we want to compete for the business that's out there. And I hope that's clear with everyone. We want that business in Cayuga County as best possible, but also making sure it complements what we have here. This is not a county, in my opinion, that's suited for Micron, but it doesn't mean we are not capable of servicing those supply chain companies, knowing we have a very strong manufacturing base here in Cayuga County and other emerging industries as well, which I think will be quite attractive as we're proceeding forth there. The other part, aside from looking competitively for business, is where we can collaborate as much as possible with other counties within our region. As Kelly mentioned there, partnering with SU, Onondaga, Cortland, Madison, Oswego, as it relates to workforce development, that we can all take advantage of opportunities emerging in each county here. So if we have something that's larger than Cayuga County can handle, we'll be looking to, promote the region and highlight what our partner counties can do, just as we're trying to make sure our name is in front of others as they're bringing in opportunities as well. So I think Kelly's doing a very fine job in leading that committee there and putting together all the right members to make sure we're putting our best foot forward. The right folks, in my opinion, are catching wind of this, and I do have to give good credit to Chairman Gould here. It's getting out throughout the region that Cayuga County is kind of setting the standard for organization. We're committed to really being in front of this opportunity. And as I've mentioned a couple of times to this committee here, Micron or not, we're coalescing in the right way, that other opportunities as they come along, we've got the right folks in the room. So again, I do thank Chairman Gould for helping make sure we've got this all together here. I'm proud to say that we do have a new marketing manager over at CETA here. She's bringing a very strong background in marketing, event management, and also was a former operations manager for a business incubator for a community roughly the same size as Auburn, New York. Her name is Lauren LaGreca. Very, very invested in the community, only being here for a short time. You can check out her profile on the page here. You may have even received an email from her most recently promoting our economic luncheon, which will be held at the Springside Inn on March 30th from 11:30 to 1:30. I do hope to see all of you there. Bring your spouse too. Good. So we're looking forward to having that. That's by and large the highlights I have for here today.
Okay, Mike, any questions for Mike?
I just asked one.
All right.
When you talked about the Alstom and their commitment,
Mhm.
and you talked about being ready for a blind applicant.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
All right, so I do understand that may have come across as a little vague there. So we at CETA, we receive communications or inquiries from Empire State Development. Some site selectors from all across the country will send Empire State Development site requirements they have for expansion projects or looking to set up shop. What Empire State Development does is they will then send this out to everyone they're in contact with, primarily economic development shops, to say, what sites do you have available? Here's what these site selectors are looking for. Whether it's, a green space, which is just undeveloped land, or use space. Here's the size of the facility we need, power requirements, water and sewer capacity, how close are you to rail, the airport, the nearest thruway, all of those things. So the Bombardier facility has checked a lot of those boxes historically, but we couldn't reply to them. But after having this meeting with Alstom and knowing that, put it out there, we're happy to try to partner with you and get this thing back to being a productive asset for the community is exactly what we wanted to hear. So we're able to respond to these
So it's
inquiries now
Alstom's approval to go forward.
and market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your updates. Appreciate all the work you guys are doing on that. With regard to the new Alstom property, formerly Bombardier, are we actively marketing that? Or are we responding to inquiries that are coming in? Do we have a marketing budget or campaign going out around?
Yeah, so that's one of the things. We just had this conversation over the last month. We do have some marketing material. It's a little dated. We just got it up today to make sure we responded to the inquiry. There are very quick turnaround times as these things are coming in. The deadline was today. We just had the inquiry 2 days ago. So we hustled and put together all the right marketing material to get that back to Empire State. With their permission now, we are going to be looking to, really put together the right marketing material to get out there. So folks like myself and primarily Maureen Reeser, whose job is really to be looking to not just retain business, but attract business to the county. So having that on hand will be really important, but also making sure we're looking out for the right employer that complements, the city of Auburn, and more importantly, will be a good partner for Auburn and Cayuga County longer term. So we don't want somebody coming in willy-nilly that's, not committing themselves to this community. That's really what we want. So we want to be purposeful in our approach, that we have a good employer long-term who's committed to this area.
And hopefully that pays high wages.
That's the idea. We really, jobs are great, but if it's 100 minimum wage jobs, what's the enormous benefit to the community here? We really want well-paying jobs that someone can raise a family on. That's what we want.
So, thank you, Mike. As I indicated when we started, I was going to jump around on our agenda because when do we have a 10-minute government option? Doesn't happen, or any meeting. So I'm going to ask our presenter, Chris Betts from Acadia Energy, to take the podium and run us through what's happening
Sure. Do you want me to just stand up here? I'm loud.
Right by the
Oh,
microphone.
I get to use a mic, all right.
And Amanda's got it up on the screen whenever you tell her to.
Oh, perfect. So looks like the version I sent you, the font is funky, so I apologize in advance. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Betts. I am the Director of Public Relations for Cayuga Energy's CEO and founder, John, right here. And we've actually been working a lot in Cayuga County over the past few months, and I'll get more into that in a minute. But wanted to just kind of give you a little background on who we are, and not only who we are, but what we are trying to do. And so really to tell you what we're trying to do, I think we need to address some of the concerns about New York State right now. Concerns, activities happening in New York State. So this is far, and I have old eyeballs, Bob, but I'm going to try and read it a little bit. So right now, who is familiar with the CLCPA plan as far as making green energy the future here in New York? So you may have heard about it. It really started to become more in the common vernacular when Governor Hochul went the State of the Union about a month ago, her address talking about gas and electric. People freaked out. They kind of got stuck on the whole gas stoves versus electric stoves. Don't take my gas stove thing. Well, that's part of the scoping plan for the Community Leadership and Climate Protection Act. That was signed into law in 2019. It's already before the legislature now in New York State, and they're spending the next year. I mean, it's already passed. So now they're spending the next year trying to figure out how to implement it and enact it. So green energy is happening in New York. How is it happening? Well, by 2050, they want to reduce greenhouse gases by 85% from 1990 levels. So 2050 is not that far off, and they already have marks for 2030, which if you think about it is really pretty close. So they're starting to take action now. This is happening. Now, I know a lot of us don't love the idea of solar panels in our backyards. We drive around a lot in upstate New York and we see signs, no solar here, we're a non-solar community. But solar, green energy is happening. That's really an inevitability at this point, especially in New York State, who wants to be a leader in the country for green energy. So right now, as it happens, you kind of see these big farms coming up with solar panels. They're connecting into the grid, the utility grid, and that energy is going where it's demanded. Now, where is most of the energy in New York State going to go? Well, it's going to go downstate, right? Because that's where the majority of people are in the state. So even though we have all the land up here in upstate New York, and we have these beautiful rolling fields and hills now covered partially with solar fields, we're not getting any direct advantage, are we, from these solar fields? And as far as our research goes, we can't find hardly any advantage for upstate New York, because just like most of our resources in upstate New York, or water, or power, et cetera, it's being sent downstate. So we want to help you guys. I say y'all, I'm from Texas, so I say y'all. We want to help y'all gain control is really what our hope is and our purpose is of your energy future. And how does that work? Well, if you have renewable growth, you can have more manufacturing businesses coming in. I'm sure when you're, pitching, marketing the Bombardier plant, if you can have green energy coming in at a reduced or affordable rate, manufacturing, it's going to be appealing for companies that want to come in, especially if this is the future now. So more jobs for your community, more affordable renewable energy for you, for your ratepayers, the people who live in the houses here in Auburn and Cayuga County. Also more economic opportunity. Right now, there really isn't a lot of economic opportunity with the way historically solar fields are done, again, put onto the grid and sent downstate. So we are hoping that we can help you guys take proactive measures when it comes to your energy future, not just for green energy, but economically and financially. So we can help plan, and you see it says with your energy partner, that's us. Let's work together to try and create renewable energy and economic opportunity. Bob, you can go to the next slide. So this just goes a little bit more into the CLCPA scoping plan. They're really hitting on the fact that they want to help really they're talking about upstate communities, but lower middle income disadvantaged communities in the Rust Belt, right? Historically, we've had to have the peaker plants and the power lines and everything that we're staring at, and yet that power is being sent downstate. And the jobs are downstate. So now they're really trying to focus on, let's do this fairly, right? Because it's going to be expensive. And let's make sure we, in this great energy transition, we address the lower middle income and disadvantaged community. So in the CLCPA plan, $406 million for these communities, which if anyone in here can officially define what an LMI DAC community is, you're the first person, because no one can actually really define, and no one in the government has been able to define what this is. It's a great idea in theory, but they haven't quite fleshed it out what it means. And that's what they're trying to work on now. So right now we have the state electric grid. It's old. We have aging utility infrastructure here in New York State. It's an old state. A lot of this stuff has been in here for a long time, and they're just trying to basically update it as much as they can. It's not a ton of new infrastructure coming in New York State. But the state's own scoping plan estimates that annual electricity demand is going to more than double by 2050. And that's if we keep on the same way we're now, because you think about it, if you take away fossil fuels, natural gas and propane, you got to heat your house, it's all electric, right? You got to cook, you got to charge your car. They want all electric vehicles in New York by 2050. Again, that's not that far off. Some of us, will be driving my car until it dies. And then my next car will likely have to be an electric vehicle because that's the way the state's going. So you have to plug in your car, you need more electricity, it's going to double the demand. Now, federally, the federal group that's looked at these numbers says the number will quadruple by 2050. You have quadruple the energy demand on your aging utility infrastructure. That's a problem. And the state knows it. They know it's going to require massive upgrades. And they know it's going to be expensive because who pays for all these upgrades? When the utilities pay for it, it goes to the ratepayer, right? We have to pay for the updates. Bob, can you do next slide? So it's already happening. Politico just reported that Con Edison customers will be paying double-digit rate increases after they reach a deal with state regulators to pay for investments to New York's clean energy goals. And how much? Well, 12.5% rate hike on electric bills over the next 3 years, a 20% rate hike for gas customers. So it's already happening. Honestly, those are probably conservative numbers as far as costs. The state's own analysis found last year that decarbonizing the economy will take roughly $15 billion a year in upfront spending by 2030 and beyond. So it's expensive. It's happening. The state's already making sure what's the solution. This is where we come in. Next slide, please, Bob. There we go.
Wait.
Go ahead.
It's hard for me not to talk.
Yes,
So I
John's got ants in
apologize.
his pants.
So that last slide up there, the last line on that slide, I don't know if you're aware of it, but 10 days ago, the Public Service Commission approved a $6.6 billion package for improving the infrastructure in upstate New York. That is about 10 cents per kilowatt hour per ratepayer in upstate New York. That was just passed 10 days ago. So the stuff that Chris is talking about, and Katie is talking about with you, is the way that the infrastructure is going to be upgraded. It's all going to be on the back of everybody upstate here. I'm an upstater. I live in Fairport. I'm moving to Owasco Lake in the spring, bought a house over there on West Lake Road. So I'm part of this group that wants to control our own energy destiny. So I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Pop up anytime we need you.
Up.
I like having John here he's my technical guy too, so I need him for that. So John has created something called sustainability hubs, and I'm sure most of you have heard of microgrids at this point. Sustainability hubs are taking microgrids to a next level, and it's traditionally a microgrid is created, say a solar field, which is a microgrid, connects to the grid, the utility goes downstate. People in the community who've participated in this solar grid can potentially pull power out of it, not that much power. Most of it goes onto the grid and downstate. Now, the state has recognized that microgrids are likely the way of the future. They're going to have to be in order to make this energy transition possible. They just can't simply get all of it traditionally through the utility. We just can't. So in the state's own scoping plan, they constantly mention microgrids. So we're taking microgrids to a whole nother level through something called sustainability hubs. And again, I want to point out, we're saying we work with our community partners to identify sites for renewable energy projects and connect local energy resources for economic growth in a responsible, and this is key, beneficial way. Beneficial to who? Not downstate, not just to us, to you guys, Cayuga County. and Capusa, which I'll go into in a second. Bob, you can go to the next slide. So just a example of a microgrid, and especially this is kind of tailored toward Cayuga County and Onondaga, so you can get an idea of this. So what's a sustainability hub? Well, in your county, you have a local microgrid. Say we have 5 properties or 1 big property with a solar field, and you get 15, 20 megawatts, whatever we can get. Power generation happens in your community. That power can go to supply chain businesses for Micron. I know you're talking about wanting to attract more supply chain businesses. And it can also go to community support local businesses. We can help lower middle income disadvantaged communities by having renewable, affordable green energy. That power is going in and out of our sustainability hub. That's our joint municipal utility network. That's through Acadia and a public-private partnership that we formed with Capusa. If you're not familiar with Capusa, it's your Cayuga County Public Utility Service Agency. Capusa has the capabilities to do transport and delivery of power. So we work together, we can help create the power and we can transport the power. It's a beautiful relationship. And that's what we've been working on now. So we're already trying to do this and build this here in Cayuga County. So you've got power coming through our municipal network, and that power can also be funneled to Micron. If we give them, say we commit to 30% of the power we create here to them, it's a moneymaker for us. And by us, I mean Cayuga County and Acadia, because we're in a public-private partnership. So any money we make selling power, the county gets benefit, Acadia gets benefit, and whoever else may be a partner with us. So that's an example of a sustainability hub, and the same exact thing, different because properties are different, the energy mix might be a little different. We can also do it in your neighboring counties. So we'd like to build these sustainability hubs all over upstate New York, because we believe that this is the way that we can have green energy, renewable power in an affordable and responsible and beneficial way for the community. Hey, Bob, you can do the next slide. So this just gives you an example of the power hub. And so you've got the fuel cells and battery storage. That's important. We know that renewable energy, I mean, the sun is very intermittent up here in upstate New York. We need to have storage for on-demand power. Renewable natural gas is something that we're looking into with some of our partners that have right now are using fossil fuels. The state's plan is to literally shut these sites off. We get a lot of our power from them right now. We get about 35 to 40% of our power in New York State from fossil fuels. So you take that out of the picture, you got to create something to fill the deficit. So we'd like to mix in renewable natural gas, hydrogen, mixing it in these lines as well. That's something we can talk about a little bit more. You've got your existing utility infrastructure. The power that we create can go on to the utility to be there for local ratepayers at a certain price. It can also go behind the meter to businesses like supply chain businesses for Micron. And then residential homes you see on there. The mix isn't just solar. I know I've mentioned solar quite a bit. There's also opportunities for wind. We can develop that as well. And hydrogen. Hydrogen's a little further down the line with the technology, but it is something that we're very strongly in favor of and we'd like to use more of. Next slide. Thank you. So this is showing you our public-private utility is Capusa. We have a signed agreement with Capusa here in Cayuga County. We'd like to, and we can, serve all of these communities. These are the ones we're in discussion with right now in upstate New York. So you can see we're very focused, obviously, in upstate New York and Cayuga County and the contiguous counties, as well as down in the southern tier. We've got active conversations going on with all of these counties already to try and build these sustainability hubs here. We'd really like to kick it off here in Cayuga County, and we've got it underway already. We're really excited about the potential for what's happening here in Cayuga County, obviously with Micron and Onondaga, but with Capusa as well. Do next slide. So what can we do? We can build your own utility. Things get a little bit technical here, so I don't want to lose you guys, but we can always answer questions after if you have any. What we'd like to do is be able to form a CCA, that's a community choice aggregation. It's a nonprofit public entity operating in investor-owned utilities. So that's what we are in now with NISAG and everyone, RG&E, and then formed by local communities. That's you guys, right? So we can form a CCA with multiple counties, and we can aggregate green energy at a cheaper rate. John,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the key of what we're talking about here is right now, your county and a lot of other counties in upstate New York are being, I use the word invaded by folks from other countries, other states that are buying up farmlands, putting in solar. You have to look at the solar because it's across the street from your homes, and that power is going down to New York City. I'm a little bit more blunt. It's going downstate to support other communities. In your community, what do you get for it? You get a pilot, $5,000 a year, something like that. You get no jobs. You get nothing, but yet it's your resources. So I've been doing this now up here for about 7.5 years. And I've been working a lot with a gentleman by the name of Don Alexander, who just retired up from Watertown, Jefferson County. Sorry for my back, Jefferson County IDA. And he's entrenched in me that, John, we need to find ways to keep the jobs up here, to create the jobs up here, and to keep the energy up here. So I was the pro bono energy expert for Jefferson County for about 5 years, and we started to develop these plans. And that's before I met Bob and Tim and John and Capusa over here. And we worked on ways to say, okay, if the energy is up here, why can't the community that the energy is being generated in benefit from that energy? You're looking at it, it's your resources. Instead of shipping it somewhere else, how can we create jobs, and how can we use that energy to create jobs in the community and create community wealth? So about 6-7 months ago, I started to bombard the governor's office with white papers on community wealth and how we're going to do this, et cetera, et cetera. And they liked it. And then we started to get entrenched with some of the senators. We started getting entrenched with the Public Service Commission and other things like that. And we've developed these sustainability hubs that we can drop into particular places, and we can start to create jobs and create wealth for the community. And that's the whole genesis of what we're trying to do here. One of the diamonds in the rough that we found was Capusa. Capusa is a utility. We're a vendor, so we can't cross the street with a power line or something of that nature. Bob can, So all of a sudden, we had this perfect union of getting together and being able to duplicate these and put these into other places. Right now, we're working on sites in Cayuga County, and we're trying to work with Center State CEO Simpson and Andy Fish up there about bringing supply chain businesses into Cayuga County. And what's going to bring a supply chain business into Cayuga County? Green, responsible, cheap energy. And you have the energy here. So why ship it someplace else? Why don't you use it to develop your own county? And I know the gentleman behind me is very interested in that. I talked to his staff probably 6 months ago about this, and it makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. I'm going a little off track here, but I did a planning board meeting yesterday up just outside of Utica. And I was the first guy on the podium, and they said, okay, you're a solar guy? And I said, well, that's kind of what we are. And they said, well, you got 10 minutes. We don't like solar. We don't want you in here, blah, 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 blah. We gave the presentation. We started to talk to them about what we did. 2 hours later, I left. And then there were about 5 people in the back row that were totally against solar, that were not part of the committee. They grabbed me and we talked for another half hour. I mean, we want to build wealth up here in upstate New York, and energy is the key. Energy is the key. And besides that, the stuff that's going on with the CLCPA is costing a lot of money. Your per kilowatt hour is going to go up to 35 cents. If you develop your own energy, because if you're not going to do it, somebody's going to come in and do it, and they're going to go directly to the state through the Office of Renewable Energy Siting, right? And they could bypass the local community. But if you do it, you can put it where you want it. You can build these hubs, you can bring businesses in. And Micron's interested in this as well. They want to go to places where they can get green, inexpensive energy. And this is one of the places. And we've got how many we got mapped out already? 15? It just makes a ton of sense. That map that was on the board here, all of Central New York wants to do the same thing. We've been to almost every one of those counties. We were at the Southern Tier 8 this afternoon too. Every single, there were six counties represented there today, planning boards. They all want to do the same thing, all in conjunction with Capusa.
Oh, yeah. That's good. So again, this gets a little
Go ahead.
technical, so if you have any other questions.
I got a question
Yes,
about
sir.
what the gentleman just said. I'm sorry, I forgot.
John.
John, okay. So you said, I heard 15 sites already. So you take up 15 sites. What stops other groups from coming in and taking up another
No,
15 sites?
you work on county
All right.
sites with us.
You're the vendor though.
No, but we're
You're
partners.
supplying the
So
panels and. all
we
the-
supply the funding, panels, we build it and work with you.
So we take up 15 sites. What is in the regulations that stops other people from coming in and taking up 15 sites?
That's up to you.
And pretty soon is the county covered with
You're
solar
correct.
panels and last I knew, and Mr. Chris can help me out with this. I mean, you need some CO2 to make plants grow. They turn that into oxygen.
No,
I mean, if we're going to eliminate it,
No, it's renewable
covering-
energies. It could be wind, it could be geothermal, it could be solar. And solar seems to be the thing that everybody's talking about right now. But that doesn't eliminate other people from coming in, but that allows you to take control of the things that you want to take control of. And then, by the way, you put together a solar moratorium package where you make it difficult for other people to come in. Got to be all American products. It's got to be I'm right now working with that town I told you about up in Oneida, Deerfield, and Marcy about putting together a solar zoning packages to basically pick out and do what you want to do, rather than having somebody come in and tell them, just put it here.
Good.
Good question. Bob, can you punch the next one for me?
Yep.
So what can happen is your county can use this community choice aggregation to provide power to, again, local ratepayers, businesses, manufacturers, and then lower middle income and disadvantaged communities. The renewable power generation provides wealth opportunity. We've kind of been harping on this. What can you do with the money that your county makes? Well, you can build electric vehicle charging stations. Maybe you use some of the money from your electric subsidy that you're making money on from our public-private partnership, to help with lowering property taxes, something all of us are constantly in favor of here in New York State. You can take the money that you're making off of your power and reinvest it in your own community. Instead, again, having solar fields that you're having to stare at and there's no real benefit to you at all. How do you do that without hands? Who's doing it? It's impressive. So that kind of leads us to Take Charge New York. And this is our not-for-profit organization that we are doing. We're trying to get all these counties in upstate New York to come together and we'll help facilitate that, to be a voice in Albany, because they are deciding this legislation right now. It's been put into law. Now they're figuring out how it's going to work. If someone from upstate or multiple voices from upstate aren't there, what do you think is going to happen, right? We don't want what has historically happened in upstate, that our resources are being used with no benefit to us, to continue to happen. And there's no team, there's no organization that we know of, and we've looked, that's really making any effort to get upstate voices together to say, hey, this is what we want out of the CLCPA plan. So that's what we've been kind of tasked to do, since there was no one else doing it. So this is our not-for-profit. And we are working with counties just like you guys to make sure your voices are heard. Part of this, you can go to the next slide. Part of this not-for-profit means that we are going towards the Public Safety Commission to ask for some changes because of legislation and rules, regulations that were put in place because of the old way things were done. Now with microgrids, and we're hoping sustainability hubs being built, we're going to have to change some of the laws. I won't go into the minutia of that, but that's also what we're doing with Take Charge. So again, we are created to give upstate communities a voice in Albany in this great energy transformation that is already underway, whether we like it or not. And our goal is to unite these counties to take charge of their own energy futures for all residents, including, of course, the lower middle income, which the CLCPA plan is very emphatic about. So we like to, our little logo motto is green energy made by your neighbors for your neighborhood. Keeping, again, the power here and the money here and the economic opportunity.
I'm going to pop in again.
Sure.
So I don't know if we spent enough time on the CLCPA. New York State has a energy policy, the The one before this was reforming the energy vision from Governor Cuomo. And then the new one that Chris was talking about came into effect. They did a scoping plan, which is 375 pages of what energy is going to look like in the future here in New York State. And that future is 2024, 2025, all the way to 2050. It's called the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act. It was they had a committee of 40, about 36 people on that, mostly heads of the state agencies, right? Of course. And they had 3 outsiders on it. And it was a plan that was put in, that they had town meetings. I attended one here in Syracuse, town hall meetings where they opened up and said, okay, people, what do you want to talk about? And they did them all throughout the state. And then this past December 19th, they signed off on it. So now that they signed off on it, it is now going to become law over the next 15 months. The timetable was December of last year to January of 2024. When that happens, what they're doing now is they're formulating the laws of what the energy future is going to be like. For example, no natural gas, right? Natural gas is going to get turned off, and by 2035, there is going to be no natural gas in upstate New York. How are they going to do that? I don't know, right? But there's all different pieces in there that are part of the laws. And now down in Albany, they're sitting down and saying, okay, we're going to put this law together, and we're going to put this law together. And if somebody doesn't raise their hand and say, whoa, that doesn't help my county. That doesn't help me. That doesn't help my constituents. That doesn't help the people in my town. Albany's just going to do what they want. And so as a vendor, we've been peppering them with stuff of what we think they should do, but we're just a vendor, and we need counties and towns to support this and say, hey, whoa, wait a minute. Before you give that $406 million to do this, we want it to be used in this particular case. And with the $406 million is what they're giving out for the LMI DAC communities. And you know what's going to happen to half of that? Half of that's going to go to administrative BS, right? Of different groups handling it, et cetera, and what's actually going to come to the people that need the help with their energy bills. And not just the lower income people, middle-class people that are working hard to pay their bills every single month and just, can't totally get ahead, but they're not an LMI or they're not a DAC. So how do we get the right stuff to the right people? And that's what Take Charge is all about, right? Let's get together. Let's tell Albany what we want in that law and what we want that money to go, instead of them just figuring out, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. So that's the CLCPA. The final draft was done and signed off on December 19th. It's about 450 pages, right? About 450 pages. So, it's real tough to get through, but it's the thing is, it's going to be the new law. And if we don't do something about it, we're going to get it stuffed down our throats. And then other people are going to come in and put solar where they want, or do this or do that. So we have to get together and pounce on Albany and tell them what we need.
I can't afford 40 cents. I'm not a lower middle, but 40 cents a kilowatt is high. We're paying about 8 to 10 cents a kilowatt now. I'm lucky to live in Fairport Electric, so I think we pay closer to 6 or 8 cents, but it's expensive. My energy bill is already higher than I want it to be with an inflationary economy. Can we afford to quadruple our bills? I don't know many people that can.
Just that law that was passed 10 days ago is going to increase your T&D, your transmission and distribution, 10 cents. 10 cents, just 10 cents right off the bat. You're probably paying about 14, 15 cents now, combination of commodity and,
transferring
T&D and commodity. And that's going to add 10 cents. Just that one bill is going to add 10 cents. That isn't going to include the 16% that you're going to get hit with, like Con Ed just got hit with. And before you know it, you're going to be 25, 30 cents. And then what's going to happen when everything has to go electric in 5 years? You think the power lines and stuff are going to be able to hold it? No, more of this is going to happen. And according to the National Renewable Energy Laboratories in Colorado, which is the Fed think tank about energy, it's going to quadruple. It's going to quadruple over the next 10 years. You have the opportunity to do your own solar farms in here and give that energy to the constituents of the county.
Mark, did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I represent 5 townships. probably better than 90% of them are farmers. We don't have a lot of industry down where I work. We're farmers. Dairy farmers. John and I've had
Yep,
conversations.
Robinson Road.
These people, land is their business. Cows require food to produce the milk. We have to have land to grow these, the crops to feed these cows. I'd be remiss if I didn't stand up and say, and I've told John this before, my communities that I represent, I want to look out their window and see solar panels. We want to see corn growing. We want to see soybeans growing, because that's what it takes to feed what this county is very highly rated, probably some of the highest in the country of producing milk. And I mean, you're telling the farmers that got multi-million-dollar farms here that in 2030 or by 2050, they're going to be non-existent because we're going to be producing solar power. I mean, I don't want to be a naysayer, and I certainly don't want to have this discussion in public, but that's what I'm getting from this.
But that's a perfect example, Mark, of what I'm talking about. So up to this point, have any other vendors come to you and said, hey, let's work together and try to figure out how to do this and where to put them?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. They came and they stuff it down your throat and say, we're going to put it right in the center of town, or we're going to put it here, we're going to put it there. And so you can't just let that happen. You just can't sit back and say, okay, let Albany handle it or whatever. We gotta step up and say, okay, we'll work with, that's what Katie does differently. We sit down with the county and say, okay, how do we do this together? Where is there property around here that we can use that's on the outskirts or something that nobody's using, that was maybe set aside for a particular reason, and that reason never happened. I mean, I'm not talking about taking the farms, those farms. And what did you do? So we sat down with you, right? We went over.
I've had this
And
conversation.
he brought up, he said, no, there's too many houses in this particular area. So what did we do? We took it off the list, right? I mean, and it may be that you can only produce maybe 20% or 25% of all the energy you're using in your particular county, but that's still 25% that is not going to be going downstate, and it's 25% that's going to be going to each one of your utility bills, helping you pay for those utility bills, and also hopefully the gentleman behind us bringing businesses into the community, so you got well-paying jobs to come into the community. So that's what we're trying to do.
One thing I do want to caution the legislature on is please don't get hung up on solar farms and solar fields. That's not what this agency is necessarily about. However, there are opportunities where we can utilize solar fields on brownfields, for example, or on top of buildings, places where they wouldn't be necessarily taking up good farmland. We're looking into that very carefully. The wave of the future is obviously hydrogen, but that's not there yet. But to say that this company is looking at alternative is the truth. I mean, it's not just the solar farms. Can we tap off of some existing solar farms? Perhaps we could buy some energy and create an opportunity for lower cost.
I understand.
We get what you're saying. We're very cognizant of what you're saying. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for renewable.
I assure you, I sat here as the voice for the farmer.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We're doing a project. As a matter of fact, today's Wednesday, signed off today by the governor of St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. They have a whole island there. And what we're going to be doing there is we're going to be doing a little bit of solar, but most of it is going to be digesters, but new types of digesters that don't incinerate. So what they do, you take municipal work, you take anything, any type of waste whatsoever, except for glass and metal. And it is so hot, and it doesn't incinerate it. It just it brings it down to its base elements. And so you take the municipal waste, they're taking algae, municipal waste, tires, all different things like that, go into this, and out of it comes hydrogen, water, and sand totally, no emissions whatsoever. But that can be used for electricity also. So that one station that we're putting in there can do half of the island. So those are new technologies that are coming out. But again, those are technologies that we should be putting into the microgrids that we should be working on. But if you don't but if you don't have that infrastructure in place to accept those, and you don't have a way to distribute the energy to the constituents of the county in an inexpensive energy, well, then you're kind of missing the whole point. You know, there's going to be new technologies coming out continuously. There's things happening in Wyoming right now, what SMRs, they're called small modular reactors that are salt-based, you know, don't have any plutonium in them, things of that nature. That'll probably be ready in about 5 or 7 years, and your infrastructure can be ready to accept that, you know. And then there's programs with NYSERDA that we can work with that will distribute that energy to the constituents in the county. Any other questions?
I appreciate your presentation. This is really interesting and timely, obviously, with the legislation. I was at a conference with Bob in Albany, and the implications of this Climate Act were being discussed by counties across the state, with a lot of concern about how are we going to achieve these performance goals, and is it even realistic to think that we can? And I just want to echo Mark's comments about the need to really think about protection of our farmland in this county particularly. We have some of the best in the country. Obviously, it's private property landowner rights to do what they want, but farmers are getting solicited every single day for these solar companies. So I like to hear from you that you do it differently and you have a different approach in terms of how you enter a community and how you look at partnering with a county or with a community.
And Tricia, we're also working with the communities on and putting together those solar moratorium type structures. Okay, what to do, because you know, it's nice to say, okay, we don't want any more solar here, but that's tough to do. You know, you got to have reasons behind it. And there's things like, you know, Buy American, prevailing wage. There's all different things that you can add into the solar moratorium laws that make it difficult for some of the people that are not from this area to come in and just drop something in your town. And you can do DEC type of situations where even if the Office of Renewable Energy Siting down in Albany says we want to do something in your particular community, you could fight them based upon DEC type of regulations, et cetera. And we're here to help you to do that as well.
I was wondering specifically about the community choice aggregation piece. And we had a presentation, I think it was a year or two ago, a strategic plan that CAPUSA has commissioned. I think it was from Hometown Connections, that talked about taking that as the first step. Well, I shouldn't say the first step because there's been work happening for years behind the scenes, but that kind of big first public step of establishing a CCA and using it to generate income for the agency so that they could then take on some of these other bigger projects. I'm just curious what your thoughts are around timing and steps, and you mentioned you have an MOU or an agreement with CAPUSA to
We do.
do some things. What is the nature of that?
So for those in the room, community choice aggregation is a program put out by NYSERDA that allows a municipal entity to buy power wholesale and then figure out where they want to put it. Correct? Right?
Yeah.
That's it. Said that correctly for you. So that's part of what our plan is with CAPUSA, because there's really two things. So if you start to generate your own energy, there's two packages or two functions that we would like you to see you do with it. One is give half to the gentleman behind us that can then bring businesses in and create jobs, high-paying jobs in the community. Whether that's agricultural type stuff that you could do indoors now, like fermentation, cellular agriculture, all high-paying stuff where people walk around with white coats every day and develop all that stuff, which is happening. You could do that, and we call that behind the meter on the microgrid. Bombardier would be a good example of that. The dairy plant would be a good example of that. You know, things like that. That's behind the meter. Then when you want to get it out to your constituents, when you want to get it out to the local residents, we're pretty much prohibited, as CAPUSA is, from delivering power to an individual home. Like, you know, 544 West Lake Road. That's where I'm going to be moving. We can't deliver power to that because of the utility of the investor-owned utility, NICEAG. They have this territory, and it's their right to deliver it to your particular house. So what NYSERDA did was create community choice aggregation, where you piggyback on the local utility, the entity, the municipal government, the counties are not going to be able to do that. You form that and you figure out where you want to put the energy, what kind of discounts you want to give, and you buy the energy from a solar provider, an ESCO. Familiar with that term, an ESCO? Yeah. That type of stuff you buy from an ESCO. So we're going a step further and saying, generate your own electricity. Don't wait for some solar guy to come in and put in a 20 megawatt farm on Robinson Road, right? And take up a farm. You figure out where to put it, whether it's solar, wind, geothermal, digesters, salt, nuclear, whatever. You figure out, with us, what we're going to generate, and we're in control of our own destiny. So later on in 2032, when most of us won't be in this room, you will, lucky enough, right? When the utilities bills are 35 cents, you'll be able to smile and say, hey, you know what? What we did 15 years ago or 10 years ago is stabilizing it at 8 cents.
Part of what forming a CCA is expensive. I'm not sure how far you guys got on that, but it can be, at least 6 figures to get it going. So what we'd like to do is, and we're going before the PSC, the Public Safety Commission, is to say, can these towns form a consortium, especially if there's a high percentage of lower middle income disadvantaged communities, and create one CCA, so they're not each individually having to pay 100,000 plus to be able to form these groups. That's part of what we're trying with Take Charge New York to go before the PSC to do. So does anyone have any other questions? We have more slides and whatnot, but you guys have the gist of it. We're still obviously working on the fleshing it all out and everything, but we've got properties that we're already starting to look at assessment for. I think a lot of exciting things happening. And again, things are moving forward quickly at the state level. So we'd like to try and get ahead of it, or at least keep up with it here. James, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chairman. So what's the timeline?
For which piece?
Is there a plan?
Well,
because hope is not a plan.
Okay, well, we're working every second Friday with Capusa about trying to put together sites, mechanisms to do our own infrastructure. Capusa could do their own infrastructure. Right now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has a ton of money for infrastructure. So we're looking at sites of how to pull constellations of some sites together so we can go to the USDA and you can have money to run your own wires from place to place to place. We're looking at doing that in conjunction with some properties that are close to Clay, New York. You know why, right? Micron, Clay, New York, and delivering electricity and maybe hydrogen and natural gas, if it's going to be allowed, to the Micron facility. And each one of those areas where we would consider pulling together a few solar farms would be, in the center of that would be a place where we can then have the supply chain folks from Micron come and build their factory, their warehouse, their offices, et cetera, and benefit from the inexpensive energy that we would be producing together. So we're doing it now.
All right. We're going to go down the rabbit hole, so I'll pass.
Yeah,
right now.
All right.
I have a question. And this is just my own curiosity because I'm not finding any information pretty quickly and easily. I've never heard of a digester that doesn't incinerate. Could you forward information about that?
Sure.
Kind of,
Sure. It's a company called Bradam, BRADAM. And there's multiple ones that are around right now. They just finished a 36-month test with Canada, with the government of Canada. And the locations were Hamilton, Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie. And they finished their 3-year study. They are backed. The study went so well that they're backed by $100 million insurance policy. And that's what our company is going to be using down in St. Croix.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
John, there's a,
excuse me, an anaerobic digester, doesn't incinerate.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those. I just, the other one here mentioned, I didn't know much about, so I'm just.
Yeah.
My
There's all new
science mind was
technologies out
curious.
there. Yeah, yeah.
We appreciate you guys' time. We're here, like John said, every other Friday. We'll be here on Friday and information, if anyone needs it, you can come to me or John. He has cards. Also, you know, anyone on the Cayuga team knows how to get in touch with us or answer questions. So
I'll be back.
yeah, we'll be back. We'll be around. We're gonna live here, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We sneak around the back door.
Thank you, bud.
Can I ask a question? Has Tim got anything to do with this?
No.
Skills
Oh.
devices.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, I love it. I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Very nice. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
CO2.
I had to pick on you.
Around. Chairman, good evening.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, doing great. All right, I'll be quick. I do earlier, it seemed like a while ago, but earlier when Steve mentioned about the work that Michelle does, she does do a great job. So I'll support him all day long. We work with her on a lot of different projects and stuff like that. So he's got a good staff person right there. So I'll support that all day long. At the district, we just got back from our ledge days meeting up in Albany. Talked to a lot of different legislators up there, both from upstate and downstate, about water quality issues and concerns, and talked a lot about the different plans and the need for funding up here to implement BMPs. I think a lot of discussions went really well. I've been doing it for probably 22 years now, and this is probably the best time we've had up there in terms of the conversations we had, like I say, with people from the city and from upstate non-Q representatives. So might as well fill a day, right? We only got 3 or 4 of them while we're there. I think we met with like 9. So it was pretty good. Our construction season's ramping up right now, moving on to Cayuga Lake through some shoreline stabilization. The weather seems pretty decent, and we have a bunch of projects lined up now that we've gone through and repaired, replaced, updated, and worked on our equipment. Our time to get back into the field instead of spending money, maybe to pay those bills off. So that went well, and looking forward to a busy construction season. And right now, also, we've been just attending a lot of meetings on the water quality stuff. I mean, I know Owasco Lake takes front and center on a lot of with the 9-element plan being just passed, and the rules and regs discussion, and the planning committee to how to implement the 9-element plan in Owasco. But Skinny Atlas Lake is also going through that, so we sit in on a lot of those meetings. There's a lot of pull from CLEO and Cayuga Watershed and Municipal Organization to talk about some of the technical stuff over there. So a lot of meetings about water quality. So we're trying to hit as many as we can. We can't hit them all, but there's only so many hours in a day. But we're keeping that going too, to keep everything, keep our opinions out there. So that's what I got quickly. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Jim's going to ask about the boat.
Well, I have 2 questions, so if I can, one row, please, Chairman. One, how are we doing with?
Yeah.
How are we doing with the boat?
Still on target. I know they started to paint it, and I think they just had a couple minor things to do, but.
I'd like to do, maybe put my initials on it. And did you get the plan for the Fairhaven barrier, West Barrier Bar?
Not the bar, just what you sent me in terms of the plants and stuff.
The
like
plants,
that.
yeah,
I do the
that's the
evaluation.
protection. Okay, so sometime I'll catch
I
up.
came through. Definitely.
Okay.
Touch base with you.
Have you had a chance to read it or?
Not yet.
That's fine. That's fine. We got time. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug, I know you and I had the conversation earlier. We talked about the bark digester thing or shredder, whatever it is. Just give an update on that.
Yeah, the bark blower. So the bark blower that you guys provided ARPA funding for, we did get a quote from the only dealer around. They're out of Buffalo through Bobcat. Looks like it's going to be about $150,000, give or take. We'll see with all the other attachments stuff we're going to need. So that was encouraging. And you might need some other equipment for it, but at least we got a quote. We're going to evaluate that, see if we need to go to bid, whether it's on already the state bid. So there's some details we still got to flesh out. So
thank you.
Yep, that'll be coming soon. We'll hopefully get that approved at the next board meeting we have, and then for the district board, and then put it either out to bid, or if it's on state contract already, we'll just purchase it up.
Any more questions for Doug?
I think we ought to run a contest to name Name the boat. Oh, you're gonna leave me up with the part digester and you get the boat? What kind of deal is that?
It's orange and blue, but after the news about daytime no longer being the coach of Syracuse.
Did he quit?
He's no longer the coach of Syracuse, whether it was he stepped back or whether. it was
After the game today?
university. About 5 o'clock today. It seemed like the news came through, so.
No, I
That's all
didn't
right.
know that.
The colors, we're talking about naming it.
No problem. We'll be all right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doug. Great job.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
Right, Dan?
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple things to highlight in my report. One of the ones, or one of the things I wanted to mention, because I don't always talk about it, is one of the outcomes from our one of our nutrition programs, which is our fruit and vegetable prescription program. Participants have to it's about 3 to 4 sessions over a month on healthy eating. After they participate in it, they get vouchers for fruits and vegetables up to $50 that can be used at farmers markets and Wegmans and Tops. And so in the last year, the participants in that program, 68% of them said they were adding more fruits into their diet. 80% are adding more vegetables. 75% have increased their physical activity. And 72 of the participants reported improved access to healthier foods attending the program. So those are all pretty positive things. And we still see some challenges in food insecurity. You may have seen in the news that during the pandemic, there was some additional money that SNAP recipients could receive as part of their benefit. That expired on February 28th. So we're anticipating a lot of families will have challenges. And with the inflation issues, some of that insecurity is moving up the income ladder with folks that maybe previously you wouldn't have thought of as having challenges with food. One other thing, I want to clarify this a little bit because I think there was some confusion at Water Quality Management Agency. I've been appointed as the representative of the director of Cornell Cooperative Extension to the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee. Well, I'm still the director of Cayuga County Cooperative Extension. In that role, I have to take a little bit more of a statewide perspective. The role of the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee is to help set policy, develop partnerships, approve the overall framework of the funding that then goes to districts, including soil and water conservation districts. And so there's 5 voting members and 9 advisory members. I'm one of those 9 advisory members, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get more money from Cayuga County out of that. I wish I could, but I don't think that's going to happen. And finally, something that's not in my report, on March 23rd, working with Farm Bureau and the sheriff, we're going to have a meeting on road safety around agricultural equipment with planting season coming up. That's always a concern. Luckily here in Cayuga County, we haven't had as many issues, but they are seeing some, I think there's been more accidents to the west of us in places like Yates County and Seneca County. So we want to try to head that off. Part of the compounding issue there is the size of the equipment today.
It's harder to get around it where people might have been able to pass, some of the tractors I first drove with a 9-foot hay line behind it. You start trying to drive around something that's 30 feet and you can't see all the way around it. That's when accidents happen. So we're going to be having a meeting to try to see what the concerns are and then develop an outreach campaign around that. So that'll be March 23rd at the Ag Museum.
Great.
And that's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Dan.
Any questions? for
Yeah,
Dan?
thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Gary?
Good evening. I'll be short and sweet. You've got the report, and the top of the line that I want to highlight is our groups initiatives. We've had a couple of damn groups, that's similar station tours, that people come to get to know the region, that offer great opportunities for groups to come to the region, specifically when it comes to health and wellness. So those are very exciting. They're very good for the county. They're very good for economic development. And they bring a lot of extra visits because they come as a group and then people continue coming independently. Sarah Dunlap represents Cayuga County when it comes to the meetings and groups efforts. She's been attending several of the big conferences, Heartland and American Bus Association, and there is growing interest for Cayuga County. One of the little challenges that we encounter right now is that being the Finger Lakes, people want to come here to sample the wine, and a lot of the wineries have stopped accepting big groups. Makes total sense. I understand where they're coming from, but it does make it a little challenging for us to help coordinate the groups to have that experience. So Claire's coming up with some creative ways to kind of go around that. Thinking on her toes. So it's nice to see that when she attends the conferences, people already kind of know a little bit about Cayuga County. It definitely shows that our previous years and efforts in reaching this market have been fruitful. Our website, you're going to see a big change. We have changed the provider of our website. And so starting April 1st, we'll be transitioning to a light version of the website. Well, we get the full version updated within the next 3 to 6 months. So you'll see some light version on there, but we will maintain the lodging, of course. It's one of the things that we want to make sure people come and stay here. The Harriet Tubman attractions, and then the groups, obviously, as we've been doing so much work in the groups and contact us page. So slowly you'll see some more of the content migrating on there. We're wrapping up with the Brave Women campaign as well as the High Vacation. Both were very popular, very strong. As you probably know, the Brave Brews Festival just wrapped up in Auburn. It was its second year. It is a great event. It's getting recognized throughout the entire state, elevating the women in craft beverages. The Brave Women FLX campaign was part of the sponsors of that event. And we got a lot of interest and had a couple of press trips that attended that as well. Sweet Tweet Trail, it kicks off in spring and we're getting that going. What we're highlighting this year is inclusive diets, bringing to light that regardless if you are gluten-free, dairy-free, there are still sweets out there for you to enjoy. So our partners have come up with special treats that we can highlight regardless of the diet that you might be having to follow. Everything else on the report, and I'd be happy to expand on anything that's specific.
Any questions for Karen?
Thanks a lot, Karen. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Entertain the motion to.
I have something.
All right, go ahead.
It was touched on earlier, but this Saturday is the Wasco Lake Symposium at Auburn Public Theater. And that's where they will be giving the data that they've collected in the final report for the, to talk about the present state of Wasco Lake and how it has compared to probably the last 10 years or more. So it's a very interesting event. It's 9 to 12 on Saturday at Auburn Public Theater. So please come if you can. It's very informative.
Do they have a written report?
They do. Yeah, I can make sure that you all have copies.
I would, because I can't make the meeting. I have prior.
It's pretty thick, but it's good. I can also see if we can get at least the executive director of the management council can come and talk too. That could be helpful. Kind of work our way through it if I can't get anyone from Finger Lakes Institute to come to a meeting here. So
thank you.
yeah.
Who's the first name you mentioned?
See if somebody can come.
Oh, anybody from, like Adam Effler, if he
Oh,
wants to
okay.
come from management council to kind of work through it, but otherwise, if we can get somebody from, say, Freshwater Institute. Oh, look at that.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.